What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and before we get into everything, the most important thing you can do is hit that subscriber button. We are very close to the 400 subscriber count, and I'll greatly appreciate if you are a new person coming to watch this channel. Definitely recommend you hitting that subscribe button. If you're a current subscriber, long-time subscriber of this channel, definitely recommend it to a bunch of people. I want to continue to grow this channel into what it could possibly be. So let's do that all together. Definitely hit that subscribe button. And now to the topic at hand. We're a couple of days separated from the regular baseball season. Major League Baseball ended a couple of days ago, and now we got past the first wild card game last night with the Red Sox and the New York Yankees, and that was a very exciting thing. The Red Sox move on to the ALDS, and we got a wild card game tonight between the Dodgers and the Cardinals. That is also shaping up to be very exciting, but we're not really here to talk about postseason baseball. I wish we were, because I wish the Phillies were in the postseason, but that is not reality. Reality is that the Phillies did not make the postseason. They are once again not in October baseball for the 10th straight season. Their last time making the playoffs was 2011. But this is their first winning record in 10 years, even though it's basically one game above the 500 point. They finished with an 82-80 record for the season. And there's a lot of things to go over with this team. What went right, what went wrong, positives and negatives, because there's a whole bunch of negatives. And maybe getting into some key wins, key losses. There's a lot of key losses as well. And basically the big checklist for this offseason, because if you put together a gigantic shopping list with all the things that you need, I think the Phillies basically need that gigantic shopping list, because there is a bunch of things this team needs to do this offseason to hopefully get back into the contention. But also, all of those check marks on that list are probably not realistic to do in one offseason, so there's a little bit of concern there. But I don't envy Dave Dombrowski's job, but I do trust him to try and get something of a better team on the field next season, because they do need some type of shakeup this offseason. But we'll get into that in a little bit later. Let's go over some of team stats, player stats throughout the course of the season. So like I said, the Phillies, they finished with an 82-80 record, -11 run differential to finish off the season. So they really couldn't outscore how much they gave up runs. Their home record was a lot better, 47-34, while their road record, they continued to struggle away from Citizens Bank Park. They were 35-46. And against 500 teams this year, teams that were above 500, they were 30-38. So I guess that means that the Phillies played a lot better against teams that were below 500. I'm not sure if that's the exact case, but when the Phillies faced better competition, they really, I guess, showcased who they really were. And they were a mediocre to below 500 team, but they still finished one game above 500. So I guess that's a positive, possibly. So if you look at the offensive totals from this team this year, they were a very just a middle ground offensive team. A lot of stats in the middle of the league. Average is around 240. That's ranked 18th. On base percentage, it was a 318. That ranked 13th in the baseball. Slugging percentage was a 408. That ranked 14th. On base percentage, or on base plus slugging, that ranked 726, which was 14th in baseball. And I'm sure a lot of that was boosted by Bryce Harper this year. The total runs for the Phillies this year, they were 734, and that ranked 13th in Major League Baseball. Home runs, 198. They were 2 off the 200 mark, which ranks 15th in Major League Baseball. So, yeah, they were barely just an average offense this year. And it does suck because when the shortened season, they were one of the top 5 offenses in baseball. But this year, the offense was just super, super, super inconsistent. They will go on stretches where they can score 5+ runs, maybe even touch 10+ runs a game for a couple of game stretch. Remember that stretch against the Diamondbacks and the Nationals where they just couldn't stop scoring 7+ runs a game? But then they would also go on stretches where they score less than 3 runs a game. And that would happen very often, especially when you go towards the end of the year. When you're playing teams like the Pirates, those last couple of games, you couldn't go a +3 runs. But then you go into the series against the Braves, you can't score more than 3 runs. So the offense this year was definitely one of the major issues with this team. And going to one of the other major issues, which was pitching. ERA, In total, the Phillies had a 4.39 ERA, starters and bullpen combined, which ranked 19th in baseball, which is a very below average pitching staff. Bullpen ERA was even worse, 4.58, which ranked 23rd in baseball. Blown saves. Phillies had a team record. They had the worst amount of blown saves in baseball. They had 34, which was worse. And surprisingly, they led baseball this year in complete games with 5. And I would assume Zach Wheeler had most of those. I think he had 3 complete games on the season. Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez had the others. That is a little bit of a surprising stat. Strikeouts, they struck out 1,480 batters, which ranked 8th in baseball. Opponent batting average was 244, which was 15th. And the whip this year was 1.29, which ranked 16th in baseball. So, yes, they were a very below average pitching staff. Really, the bright spots to look at from this rotation are guys like Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez. If you want to look at the bullpen, too, you can look at the second half for Hector Neris. He was definitely a lot better. Other pitchers that you can possibly look at as intriguing pieces for next year. I still think Connor Brogdon is an intriguing piece. And there's a bunch of other things. Maybe you could put Bailey Falter into the mix. Sam Coonrod, he had a okay year, and hopefully maybe he's another person just for that mid-rotation of the bullpen. Maybe they use him as a late-inning type of guy. That's still something to be discussed because there are a couple of free agents in that bullpen that the Phillies need to look into. Guys like Archie Bradley, Hector Neris, and Ian Kennedy. They're definitely not going to bring all 3 of those guys back, but that is another thing Dave Dombrowski has to look into this season with those guys going into free agency. Who is he going to bring back, and who is he going to let walk? So that's something we have to look into as that time comes. So, to the lineup this year, let's see how, I guess, the majority of the main guys that we saw basically closer towards the everyday lineup and some of the more big impact guys in the lineup this year. So, the biggest guy, Bryce Harper. He was fantastic this year. He's going to be an MVP finalist, most likely is going to win the MVP, even though it is a very, very close race. He finished this season with a 309 average, a 429 on-base percentage, 615 slugging percentage, an OPS of 1.044, 35 home runs on the season, 84 RBIs, 42 doubles, 100 walks, and 100 runs. And this is a stat that also is really important too when you look at Bryce Harper this season and just some of the history that he had made. So for the list of outfielders to reach 100 runs scored, 40 doubles, 35 home runs, and 100 plus walks this year, Babe Ruth, he did it 2 times, Barry Bonds, Stan Musial, and Bryce Harper. There's only 4 guys on that list, and Bryce Harper is one of them. So he had a fantastic year, basically just carrying this team from the ground up, being basically one of their lone sources of offense, especially after the All-Star break. And he had a good start to the season too, but he really struggled in May, especially right after he got hit in the face in that game against the St. Louis Cardinals. He missed a couple of games. He was in and out of the lineup because of that situation. It was more so because he also got hit in the wrist at the same time, but he struggled during that month, but he just continued to get better and better and better, and even just historically better, just for how good of the second half of the season was for him. And the fact that he's going to be an MVP finalist, maybe has a chance to win the MVP without being an all-star this year. And the last Philly to do that, I believe, is to win the MVP without being an all-star. I think that was Jimmy Rollins when he did that in 2007. Yeah, he was not an MVP, or he was not an all-star that year, but he did end up winning the MVP award, so that's something also to look out for. Bryce Harper, there's really nothing to complain about. I know people are going to complain about he didn't produce in the Braves series, he didn't do this, he went hitless, he didn't come up when the time mattered. There's no one else in this lineup besides Bryce Harper. What he has done this second half is carry this entire team. Other people need to step up, and no one really did. You lost Rhys Hoskins, which was another important bat in this lineup, and basically besides that, because a lot of other people in this lineup struggled, and we'll get into those in a little bit, Bryce Harper was basically the lone source of offense. No one got on base for him. Matt, remember in the beginning half of the season with how many solo home runs he hit before he finally got his first multi-run bomb? That was very long into the season. It was a long time before that happened. It's to the fact that no one got on base for him when you're starting the season with guys like Mickey Moniak, Adam Hazley, and then you have to throw in Odubel Herrera because you have no one else better to do. That's a problem. That is a major problem in that leadoff spot in that outfield. And that's also one of the checkpoints that the Phillies need to look into this offseason. So something to look into there. Bryce Harper could not do everything, and that basically shows in the Braves series. He can't do everything. The Braves pitchers, they had their best guys on the mound that series. They were pitching to Bryce Harper. They were making sure he did not get on base, and they did that. So at the end of the day, you have to tip the cap to those guys. Yeah, Bryce Harper definitely needed to be better in that series. Maybe if he got those runs home in that first game, maybe something would have happened different for his bat that series. But there were cases where he did try to do too much, and you can definitely showcase that during the end of the season, especially against teams like Baltimore, like Pittsburgh, like the Braves. He was trying to do way too much because he realized that the lineup was struggling and he had to put an extra 150% in there. And sometimes you just got to play it simple. Sometimes you can't do everything. And Bryce Harper, it showcased that he can't do everything for this lineup because he is just human. So other guys needed to pick it up where Bryce Harper couldn't, and sadly that did not happen. But I'm not going to blame Bryce Harper for that lone series against the Braves. There are way other problems on this team than Bryce Harper not showing up against the Atlanta Braves. Way other issues. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Rhys Hoskins, the other guy in the lineup, sadly he basically missed the rest of the season like he did in the shortened season. He showcased how much of an important bat he was to the lineup in terms of run producing, hitting bombs. He was just that important to this team. He batted .247 with a .334 on base percentage, a .530 slug, and an OPS of .864, 27 home runs, and 71 RBIs. He was driving in the runs this year. He was hitting the long ball, and he just showcased how important he was to this lineup. We all know he's not that good of a defender at first base, but with the bat this year, that was definitely something they missed going towards that last stretch of the season, and Bryce Harper was basically the only guy that could hit. And yeah, Rhys Hoskins showcased. He was missed. He was definitely missed. So I know if there was a chance for the Phillies to move a Rhys Hoskins, if you can get something good in return for a Rhys Hoskins this offseason, like if that is on the books, yeah, I would do that. But I would also be open to keeping Rhys Hoskins because next year when you have the DH most likely going to be utilized in both leagues, the NL and the AL, that's definitely going to help the Phillies a little bit, just looking into some guys that can just rotate into the DH spot and out of the DH spot. Rhys Hoskins is definitely one of those guys, but who knows if the Phillies opt to, if the DH does come to the National League, if they opt to go out and get a guy that's solely just for the DH. But the Phillies have a lot of players in this roster that can swap in and out of the DH role. Bryce Harper could play DH sometimes. Alec Boehm, if he comes up to the big leagues next year, and he's most likely going to, but he needs to prove that he can. Rhys Hoskins, definitely one of those guys. JT, when he needs a day off from the catching position, you put him in the DH slot. So there's a lot of guys in this lineup that you can definitely slot into that position, but there's still many other moves that this team needs to make. Andrew Mccutchen, he had a very abysmal couple of first months into the season, but then he did start to pick the bat up a little bit. But the splits definitely between the righties and the lefties was very drastic. He was fantastic against lefties. He was miserable against right-handed pitching. But I knew Andrew Mccutchen, he definitely wasn't going to showcase what he was in that first part of the season for the entire year. He's just too much of a veteran. He knows how to get out of those slumps, but still he is showcasing his age. He is showcasing some decline. He batted the season in total, a .222 average, a .334 on base percentage, a .444 slugging, .778 on OPS, and 27 home runs, 80 RBIs. He did pick it up with the power and the run producing towards the end of the season, but still he's showcasing his age, and his contract is definitely going to be up this season. I don't see the Phillies picking up his option and him most likely hitting free agency. JT Realmuto, definitely just a very underwhelming year from him. A .263 average, .333 on base percentage, .439 slugging, .782 OPS, 17 home runs, 73 RBIs. There just were games where JT definitely wasn't hitting the ball like he was the past couple of years, even though he is basically to his career average. He's hitting around there, but with the contract and the money that he's making, he needs to be a little better. And there were some cases behind the plate too where he wasn't his best. So I'm assuming injury is also involved because he did play with a injured shoulder throughout basically a lot of the second half of the season. So that definitely, I would assume, played a factor. But JT definitely needs to be better. And right now, the contract isn't looking the best just because he's not performing up to his capabilities that he's had over the past couple of years. So he needs to be better. Jean Segura, he was one of our more consistent hitters. He batted .290 average, 348 on base percentage, 436 slugging, 784 OPS, 14 home runs, 58 RBIs, 27 doubles, and 149 hits in total. On the field and with the bat, Jean Segura was one of our more consistent hitters, and I think he has one more year on his contract after this season, so I would assume the Phillies are most likely not going to try to move him because he does have a no-movement clause, and he has to agree wherever he gets traded to. So I would assume Jean Segura is going to remain with the Phillies. Didi Gregorius, very, very, very just terrible year from him in the field with the bat. I know he had some issues with the elbow, with the swelling of that, elbow injuries. I know there was issues there, but he just wasn't the guy that we signed or re-signed this offseason. He batted 209, 270 on base percentage, 370 slugging percentage, 639 OPS, 13 home runs, 54 RBIs. He just wasn't good. He just wasn't good. And I'm not sure if the Phillies try to trade him this offseason, try to bring in another shortstop. Bryson Stott, maybe he bumps Didi out of the line, but who knows what's going to happen with that. We'll get into that a little bit later with terms of free agency or other guys that can play shortstop. We'll get into that in a little bit. Brad Miller definitely showcased why he can't be an everyday guy. 227 average, 321 on base percentage, 453 slugging, 774 OPS, 20 home runs, 49 RBIs. He's a platoon guy. He's going to be a guy that comes off the bench every now and then. He's more of that type of role. He's not an everyday starter, but he's only forced into that role because Rhys Hoskins getting injured, the underachieving of Alec Boehm having to get sent down, and basically he was forced into that starting lineup, and I'm not going to blame it on Brad Miller. He's not a starter. That's basically what he is. Odubel Herrera forced into the center field position when other options were failed. Adam Hazley, sadly, for what he had gone through in the beginning of the season. Mickey Moniak, that option was just bad. Odubel Herrera, he's not going to be any better, but he was the best, I guess, that he could be. But besides Odubel Herrera, the person, he was basically just forced into this place because the Phillies had no other option. He batted 260 on the season, 310 on base percentage, 416 slugging, 726 OPS, 13 home runs, 51 RBIs. He had his stretches where he gets hot. He had his stretches where he gets cold. That's what Odubel Herrera has been his entire career. And I don't think the Phillies should bring him back next year, even though he still, I think, has another year or two left on his contract. I would definitely be looking to try to move that contract off this team just because Odubel Herrera, the person, and he's not that good of a player. He's just an okay player and should not be your everyday outfielder. Ronald Reyes, forced into a starting position because he basically outplayed Alec Boehm, and that's a problem in itself. He batted 242 on the season, 286 on base, 346 slugging, 632 on OPS, 7 home runs, 41 RBIs. He outplayed Alec Boehm. That was the problem. And it's not that Ronald Reyes' fault. He was great in the first half of the season, and definitely as you showcased him more and more and more in that lineup, you definitely can tell, okay, yeah, this is who Ronald Reyes is. Like, he's not that good, but he outplayed Alec Boehm, and that's to the fault of Alec Boehm not playing good this year. So, Ronald Reyes, he definitely did come up clutch in a lot of moments for this team. Now, I'll give him that. I will definitely give him that. And Alec Boehm, speaking of the devil, 247 average, 305 on base percentage, 342 slugging, 647 OPS, 7 home runs, 47 RBIs, and 111 strikeouts. For Alec Boehm, after coming off of that shortened season, finished, I think, second in the Rookie of the Year voting for the NL, he didn't live up to the expectations this year. And yeah, you can call it a sophomore slump. He definitely experienced, I would assume, that, just because we all know he's going to be terrible in the infield. That's basically what he has been his entire career. In college, his scouting report, and in his short stint in Major League Baseball, he's going to be very not good in the field. Just not good. He's too tall for the third base position. He can't get to the ground immediately. That's where the flaws come in his fielding game. And hopefully he's going to be that guy that can out-hit his mistakes. I'm not sure the Phillies are going to try to transition him into a different position, whether that's first base, whether that's the outfield, which I still don't agree putting him into the outfield. I feel like that's going to be even a worse possible situation. I feel like you're going to try to get a Rhys Hoskins left field situation again if you put Alec Boehm out there, but he showed signs of a sophomore slump this year. He just wasn't hitting to the average that he hit last year, even though that was a shortened season, but still, he struck out way too many times. The power still hasn't been able to showcase that consistently. And even though his scouting report said he can become a good power hitter in this league, he's a good all-around hitter, he still needs to find a way to showcase that power consistently. and not hit home runs off of position players. So Alec Bohm needs to get better this offseason. He needs to work on his hitting. He needs to find a way to showcase that power, maybe change the batting stance a little bit, which I don't think is going to happen. But Alec Bohm, I know Joe Girardi said they're still going to test Alec Bohm at the third base position. That's probably where he's going to be for a little bit. So I would assume Alec Bohm's going to be on the Major League roster next year. I don't think he starts in AAA. I would assume during spring training he's going to get all the chances in the world. I would assume he's going to make the Major League roster. They're not going to go through this situation again. They're going to play Alec Bohm next year, I would assume. So he just needs to get better. That's basically this point. And Bryce Harper did say that during his press conference too. Not specifically about Alec Bohm, but just in the terms of the team this offseason in general. They can't be a team that goes out and constantly spends money on every position. They need to have guys down in the minor leagues, down in AAA, AA, just guys in the prospect system they can call up, and those guys need to perform when they come up to the major league level. Yeah, they just need all the help in the world to develop that minor league system. That's basically it. They need all the help in the world to find a way to get the minor league system to just develop some good prospects, because this team that's basically where they're lacking the most. Is the development system, is the prospect pool. They don't have that good of a prospect pool. They probably have few players that you can look into as maybe making an impact on the roster. So that's definitely something they need to get better at. So moving forward to the pitching staff. Mainly I'm going to focus on the starters just because it would make the video longer than it is currently. I think we're, near the 30-minute mark. So try to, I guess, get through this a little more quicker than I should. But, it's a recap video. That's probably how long this shit was going to be. So hopefully you're still here. Starting rotation, starting with Zack Wheeler. Basically one of the major positives in this pitching staff. Throughout majority of the season, he was a Cy Young candidate, but when you got into August, he struggled a little bit for a couple of starts. He definitely bounced back in September, got a lot better, and he was one of the more consistent pitchers on this staff for the Phillies. He really solidified that ace spot for this team. He was 14-10 on the season, 2.78 ERA, 3 complete games, 213.1 innings pitched, 247 strikeouts, and a 1.01 whip. Zack Wheeler, most consistent guy on the staff, and right now the contract signing from him is looking really, really good. And his numbers ever since coming to the Phillies have been really, really good. So hopefully he can just continue to build off that and be the best pitcher that he can possibly be. And moving to one of the disasters of the rotation, Aaron Nola. 9-9 record on the season, 4.63 ERA, 180.2 innings pitched, 223 strikeouts, and a 1.13 whip. Aaron Nola, just a disaster this season. Had a lot of issues. There were also some good games sprinkled in there. The complete game earlier in the season, but definitely one of those heartbreaker games. The game he was pitching in San Diego where he gave up the walk-off home run and a chance to get the win for the team that year. That was definitely one of the major losses on the season for this team. But, yeah. I know there's analytics that showcase Aaron Nola was very unlucky this year, that he's definitely not going to have this type of season going in the next the next year. And he had a lot of problems getting guys out with 2 strikes. There was just a big issue with that with a lot of Phillies pitchers this year, but Aaron Nola especially. He had so much trouble getting guys out when they were in the 2-strike count, and that is a major issue. I don't know if that's mechanics. I don't know if that's mentally, but there is a major problem with Aaron Nola, and right now he's really just showcasing that he's no better than maybe a 3-starter in his career, and that's probably where he's going to be. I don't think the Phillies are going to move him. I think they're going to stick with him. If there was a chance to move Aaron Nola, I would do it to get something else in return. I'm sure his value is definitely not as high as it could be just because of the season that he's had this year, but I don't know. Aaron Nola, this is definitely because the anomalies of his career, I believe, are this season and the Cy Young year. If you look at his career stats, he's more around the low to mid 3 type of ERA, so maybe that's where he can bounce back to. That could be something good for us if he's a 3-starter and he has a low 3 to mid 3 ERA. That's something that could be a drastically better. But can I guarantee that? No, he needs to find a way to, get his confidence back up there. And, Aaron Nola, he's not a good pitcher in September. He has showcased that his entire career. He can't step up in September. He can't step up when the time matters. And every time you ask him that during his press conference, I don't want to talk about September. I don't want to talk about this. I want to focus on the now. That just sounds to me, it's just loser talk. And that's my one issue with Aaron Nola. I feel like he just has a loser mentality. And that's one of the major reasons why I don't want him on the team anymore. but I don't feel like they're going to move on for him. They're going to try to keep working this out with Aaron Nola, so I think right now we're stuck with him for the time being, but I'm not going to harp on it the entire time. So moving on to the other bright spot of this rotation and just the entire pitching in general, Ranger Suarez, fantastic year. Everything that was asked of him, he did it. Bullpen, closer, starter, he did everything. 8-5 record on the season, 1.36 ERA, a complete game. He had 4 saves, he had 107 strikeouts, and he had a whip of exactly 1. Everything that Ranger Suarez was asked upon this season, he did it. And that's basically more than you can ask from him. He was just good, and hopefully he can build that into next season. He definitely solidified a rotation spot for him next season. Kyle Gibson, I'm going to look at his overall totals and his totals with the Phillies because there is a drastic difference between his numbers with the Rangers and a drastic number between his time with the Phillies. So his total stats right now, a 10-9 record, 3.71 ERA, 182 innings pitched, 155 strikeouts, and a 1.22 whip. And his numbers with the Phillies, he was 4-6, a 5.09 ERA, 69 innings pitched, 61 strikeouts, and 1.29 whip. Yeah, his numbers definitely got a little bit worse coming into Philadelphia. I guess he showcased what kind of starter he actually is, but Kyle Gibson, he's no better than a 4 for a fifth starter. That's basically what he is. That's what he's been his entire career. Those numbers that he had with the Rangers, yeah, I would assume those are the anomaly. I wouldn't say Kyle Gibson is a 5 ERA type of guy. I would assume he's around the mid 3s to maybe low 4s. I feel like that's where his career totals are most likely at. And he's basically the description of a 4 for a fifth starter. And he's most likely going to be here next season because he has 1 more year left on his contract. So he's most likely going to be in the rotation come next season. And just Zach Eflin, injury-shortened season, 4-7 record, 4.17 ERA, 105.2 innings pitched, 99 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.25. He had a good start to the season, but then you can showcase, or you can see the signs of him struggling a little bit, and that's what Zach Eflin has been his entire career. He's had dominant stretches, but he's also had very cold stretches at the same time. And with the injury this year, I'm not sure if Zach Eflin going to get I don't think the Phillies can run back with the same rotation next year. They definitely cannot. And is Zach Eflin going to be a part of that rotation? Are they going to throw him into the bullpen, or are they going to move on from Zach Eflin? I'm not sure. I really don't know. So that's something that they have to look into next year. But yeah, the pitching just drastically needs to get better. I can go over the entire bullpen, but I'm not going to save time. But the bullpen drastically needs to get better. There are intriguing pieces, but there's a lot of broken pieces as well. So they need to figure out a way to work that bullpen out. They definitely do. So that's going to do it for, well, not do it for the video. Not end the video off. I don't know why I said that. Duh. But just the, I guess, the statistics from the pitchers, from the batters, I guess that's done. If you want to talk about some key wins, key losses for a little bit. So we all know, like, the major key victories from this team this year was definitely that stretch in August where they had the 8-game win streak. They beat the Pirates on that last game in that series. They swept the Nationals. They swept the Mets to take over first place for a little bit. But then you saw them going on that huge stretch of just losing. They lost to the Dodgers. They lost to the Reds. They lost to the Diamondbacks. And, you know, you can look at a lot of key losses on this year. There was definitely a ton of them, especially late in the season as well. Probably one of the bigger ones, even though this was more towards the beginning to middle of the year. It was one of those series against the Atlanta Braves where you had a chance to win it in the 9th inning, and then Hector Neris blew the save where Pablo Sandoval hit the game-tying home run. So, yeah, there's a lot of big losses. You lost series to teams that you should have beat, many series to the Marlins, especially in Miami. You lost that series towards the end of the year to the Diamondbacks. You lost the series towards the end of the year to the Rockies, to the Chicago Cubs. So a lot of teams that you should have beaten, the Phillies didn't. And that's what showcased what kind of team they were. They were an average team. And that's where their record finished, 1 game above 500. That's where they were going to hover around the entire season, whether it was a couple of games above 500, exactly 500, or below 500. That's where this team was. That's all they were going to be. And just, I want to get into some maybe of the offseason acquisitions, possibly, of like maybe key things that the Phillies can go after, because I do expect them to be some type of players in the free agent market. That's just what they're going to be, I would assume. So I kind of expect this team to be in the look for a shortstop, because there's a lot of shortstops on the market this year, a lot of high leverage shortstops. because if you look at the free agent class for shortstops this year, the top 5 are big hits. This is probably going to be one of the better free agencies in recent history. So, looking at the shortstops right now, your expected free agents are Marcus Semien, Trevor Story, Corey Seager, Carlos Correa, and Javier Baez. Marcus Semien having a historic year. Even though he's listed as a shortstop, he was playing second base majority of the season for the Blue Jays, and he had an historic season for a second baseman, hitting 45 plus home runs this year. He was just incredible, and he's definitely going to get paid this offseason. He's definitely on the older side as most of these players on this list. He's 31. He's the oldest out of these players, but he definitely could be a good option if the Phillies want to test that out. Trevor Story, he's one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball. Really good Gold Glove caliber type of shortstop. I know this year he had a struggle offensively in Colorado, but he's definitely a guy that just needs to get out of that team, to get out of that organization, go on to a new team like Nolan Arenado did with the Cardinals. He played fantastic for them this year. I think that's exactly what Trevor Story needs. Corey Seager, he's a great shortstop for the Dodgers. He's a World Series and an NLCS MVP. He's been great for this team for the past couple of years. He's definitely going to be making some major bucks on the market if he does hit free agency, which I do expect him to, because the Trey Turner acquisition, I would assume, solidifies that Corey Seager is most likely hitting the free agency market. And who knows, if he does anything big this postseason for the Dodgers, maybe he can add some more money to his salary for next year and for the next few years. Carlos Correa, and I think he's basically confirmed this is his last season in Houston, and let's see what he can do this postseason for the Astros. And I know maybe some money is going to come off the books for him just because, of the whole cheating scandal with the Astros. But he's still most likely going to make some dollar. He's going to make some money. He's a really good shortstop in his league, very good hitter, a lot of experience in the postseason, and good leadership. So that's something to look out for Carlos Correa. And then Javier Baez. He has an electric bat. He has an electric glove, but he also can strike out a lot. But he can also be a great bat for a playoff contender. He's won a World Series. He's been a caliber MVP type of player. He's finished second in MVP voting before, so this shortstop market is very stacked. And I'm looking at their market value too. Marcus Semien right now is the cheapest out of all the guys. His market value right now is $19 million per season, and the most expensive is Corey Seager currently at around $30 million. Do I think Corey Seager is going to make $30 per season? I have no idea. But Corey Seager is... Now, he's the second youngest out of these players. Carlos Correa is the youngest at 27 years old. So there's some options on the shortstop market. I do think the Phillies are going to be a major player in one of these guys. Do I think they're going to grab one of them? I have no idea. But they're definitely going to be in the race. I don't think it's going to be like a Bryce Harper situation where they were one of the favorites. I don't think the Phillies are going to be one of the favorites for these teams, but they're definitely going to be involved in the mix because they're most likely going to have to be involved. In terms of pitchers, they're just... On the pitching market, it's really, I would say, sketchy in terms of starting pitchers because a lot of the guys are old, and you don't want to run the risk of going into another type of Jake Arrieta situation because the guys on the market this year, Zach Greinke, he's 37 years old, going into his 38th season next year. Justin Verlander, you don't know what you're getting. He's 38 years old, going near 39. He's coming off a Tommy John surgery. How much do you think he has left in the tank? Clayton Kershaw, he's not guaranteed to hit free agency, but... He's 33 years old. He's still injured right now for the Dodgers, and I don't think he's going to pitch in the postseason from what I know. So there's something there. Max Scherzer, he's still electric at 37, so I don't think he's going to leave the West Coast, in my opinion. Johnny Cueto's a free agent. Marcus Stroman's a free agent. And I think other guys, Robbie Ray's going to be a free agent this year. He's also 30 years old, though, but he's definitely going to get paid this offseason. So there's things that they can definitely look into in the free agent market, but I'm not sure if the trade market's better for them pitching wise. It's a weird position to be in right now for the Phillies, and some bullpen pieces they can definitely look into for next year. Kenley Jansen, Craig Kimbrell, Andrew Miller, Brad Hand, and no one's going to go after Brad Hand. There's people on this market that they could possibly go into. They need outfielders too. There's a lot of things that this team needs. They need infield help. They need outfield help. They need pitching help. They might need to go get another backup catcher. There's a lot of things. There are so many things on this market. If you look at, maybe if you want to factor the DH into this role, Nick Castellanos is going to be a free agent possibly next year if he doesn't pick up his option. So he could be a free agent. And I think also Kyle Schwarber, he could be a free agent too if the Red Sox don't pick up the option for next year as well. So there's a lot of things this team can do next year. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for this team, and I don't know if I don't envy Dave Dombrowski at all. I don't envy his work. He has a lot of work to do, and I don't know. There's just so much this team needs. It's going to be impossible to make all those checks on the list. So, one more topic to talk about, Joe Girardi, because this is a very mixed bag of emotions with this guy. Didn't have a good season. I don't think he had a good season, but I don't think he is the major problem with this team. I know a lot of other people will say that, oh, if you put another manager in this spot with the Phillies, they might be a playoff team because Joe Girardi doesn't make good decisions, blah, 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 blah. No, you put another manager with his organization, this Phillies are still the same. They're still a 500 team. This roster is very flawed. When you're forced to start guys like Ronald Reyes, Freddie Galvis, because other people are not playing up to their standards, there's a problem. When you're forced to play Brad Miller every day, there's a problem. When you're forced to play Odubel Herrera in center field, there's a problem. See what I mean here? It's not just Joe Girardi. Even though Joe Girardi did not have a good season, yes, there were a lot of moments where he made bad decisions. But there were also a lot of situations where he's forced to make those decisions because of how flawed the roster is. So, I don't think Joe Girardi is going anywhere. He has one more year, I think, left on his contract, so this is going to be a big year for him. This is going to be a big year for the team coming up and the direction that they go into. Bryce Harper, he stated it many times. He's committed to this city. He's not going anywhere. I don't expect him to. I feel bad for the guy because his team does not know how to build around him. But he's not going anywhere. So, this team needs to figure it out this offseason, even though it's really unrealistic. Find a way. Find a way to try to be competitive next year because it's still going to be tough because the Mets, because the Braves. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm just going to sit here and tell you I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea what this team is going to be next year because this team is unpredictably predictable, in my opinion. So don't go into next season with all the hype that this is going to be a playoff team. Take it one day at a time with this team. One day at a time. And we're going to see what happens this offseason. We're going to see what happens with the moves that they make, and we'll judge it based on there. So, I think that's finally going to do it for this recap. It was a very long-ass recap. Hopefully you watched it, majority of it. And I think that's going to do it. So, thank you for watching this video. What are your thoughts on this Phillies offseason? What do you think they have to do? And just all your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I want to hear them. Phillies offseason, goals, what they need to achieve, Joe Girardi, Bryce Harper, everything. So, don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. Don't forget to check out the Painted Lines, which I'm a part of. Their links are down in the description below. Also, don't forget to check out the links to Broads Media, the Flyer.pod merch website, and also Flyers Nitty Gritty. All that good stuff is down in the description below. Do not forget to check those out, and I will see you next time.